43 people have been executed in North Carolina. This is part 2 of the series. Clifton Allen White, August 24, 2001, lethal injection. In 1989, following a 4-day cocaine binge, White forced his way into the Charlotte residence of 28-year-old Kimberly Ewing, who was the roommate of a man White was romantically involved with. Upon Ewing's return home, White confronted her, bound her with an electrical cord, struck her on the head with a fireplace shovel, essayed her, stabbed her in the back of the neck, and repeatedly slashed her throat. He then stole her money and personal belongings, exchanged them for cocaine, and drove her car to Florida, where he was eventually arrested. White fully confessed to the crimes. His initial death sentence was overturned in June 1992 due to evidence showing he had committed similar essays on other victims. He was subsequently retried, convicted, and sentenced to death again in 1994. White declined the last meal in protest of abortion. His last words were, "I didn't take the last meal because I have very strong convictions about abortion and the 33 million babies that have been aborted in this country. Those babies never got a first meal, and that's why I didn't take the last in their memory." Ronald Wayne Fry, August 31, 2001, lethal injection. On November 15, 1993, Fry was convicted of first-degree murder and armed robbery in connection with the death of his landlord, Ralph Childress. The murder occurred after Fry returned home one day to find a note from Childress informing him that the trailer had been leased to someone else and that he needed to move out. The following morning, Childress was discovered dead, having been stabbed multiple times with a pair of scissors, which remained lodged in his chest. Fry had no last words and no final special meal. David Jr. Ward, October 12, 2001, lethal injection. Ward, together with his accomplice Wesley Harris, targeted the home of Dorothy Mae Smith, ambushing her as she returned from closing a convenience store. During the attack, Smith was shot 5 times and the perpetrator stole $4,000. Ward was later arrested on unrelated charges and provided a full confession, which led to Harris's apprehension. Police recovered $1,000, a .32 caliber handgun, and a .22 rifle from Harris's vehicle. Harris was tried first and received a sentence of life imprisonment. Ward's last words were, "Get on with it." He did not have a final special meal. John Hardy Rose, November 30, 2001, lethal injection. After receiving a report that Patricia Stewart was missing and discovering small drops of blood in her apartment, police began questioning Rose, who lived in a nearby unit. On January 13, 1991, the State Bureau of Investigation conducted a consent search of vehicles belonging to Rose and his sister. Investigators recovered a tire tool, jumper cables, a black sleeveless jacket, and a thermos, all of which tested positive for blood. The bloodstains were consistent with Patricia Stewart's blood type and did not match Rose's. 2 days later, on January 15, agents interviewed Rose again, this time in the presence of his mother. During the conversation, his mother urged him to disclose any information he had about Patricia's disappearance. Rose then revealed that her body was at his grandmother's farm, leading to a full, detailed confession. Rose's last meal consisted of 2 cheeseburgers, French fries, and a milkshake. His last words were, "I know I've been forgiven by the people that love me. I've already told them, they've told me. I feel like everything has been said." Ernest West Basden, December 6, 2002, lethal injection. Basden fatally shot Billy White twice in a murder-for-hire plot orchestrated by his co-conspirators, James Linwood Taylor, his nephew, and Sylvia White, the victim's wife. Taylor, posing as a wealthy businessman interested in purchasing insurance, lured White to a remote wooded area. Once at the location, Taylor and Basden waited in their vehicle for White's arrival. When White appeared, Taylor exited the car to introduce himself, while Basden retrieved a 12-gauge shotgun that he had placed on the ground. Initially, Basden attempted to fire, but the gun failed to discharge because he had not cocked the hammer. He then cocked the hammer and fired, knocking White to the ground. After removing the spent shell and loading another, Basden stood over White and shot him again, completing the agreed-upon killing. In accordance with their arrangement, Taylor paid his financial struggling uncle $300 for carrying out the murder. Both Basden and Taylor later confessed to their roles in the crime. Sylvia White is currently serving 2 consecutive life sentences, while Taylor remains incarcerated with a life sentence. Basden did not request anything special for his last meal, choosing instead to eat what all others at Central Prison ate. The menu included breaded veal, brown gravy, mashed potatoes, three-bean salad, mixed vegetables, slices of loaf bread, and orange and fruit punch. His last words were, "I killed Billy White. I'm sorry for it, and I pray that his family will come to forgive me and let time heal their wounds, and that's all we can do." Desmond Keith Carter, December 10, 2002, lethal injection. Carter approached his 71-year-old neighbor, Helen Purdy, at her home, requesting to borrow money. When Purdy refused his request, Carter stabbed her 13 times and took $15. Initially, he confessed to the attack, claiming that Purdy had become agitated and was accidentally stabbed while trying to push him. At trial, he admitted to the killing but argued that he had been intoxicated by alcohol, crack cocaine, and tranquilizers at the time of the attack. The jury, however, rejected both his explanations and held him fully responsible. His last meal was 2 cheeseburgers, a steak sub, and 2 Cokes from the prison canteen. He declined to ask for a special last meal and paid $4.20 from his prison account for the food. His last words were, "The only thing I would like to say is that I apologize to the victim's family of Mrs. Purdy, and I would like to apologize to my family for the disappointment and pain I have caused them throughout my life. I love you, Pop." William Quentin Jones, August 22, 2003, lethal injection. In the early hours of March 7, 1987, just before midnight, Jones, 18 at the time and wearing a ski mask, entered a Raleigh convenience store where several employees and customers were present. He opened fire with a 9mm gun, shooting 3 to 6 rounds, hitting Orlando Watson, who later survived after surgery. Jones then declared, "This is a stick-up," and turned the gun on Edward Peebles, 32, who was standing in a corner. Peebles was shot twice, resulting in the rupture of his aorta and a large vein, causing fatal bleeding. Peebles had been a customer who had only stopped in briefly for coffee. Following this, Jones ordered Charles Taylor, the store clerk, to open the cash register, threatening him with death. When Taylor was unable to comply, Jones grabbed the register and dragged it outside, around the fence, and to the side of the building. After being apprehended, Jones admitted to his actions and entered a guilty plea for first-degree murder. His original death sentence was overturned on appeal, but a second jury ultimately reimposed the death penalty. Security footage revealed that Jones discharged a total of 10 bullets, 6 of which were fired immediately upon entering the store, even before announcing the robbery. His last meal was tossed salad with shredded carrots and cheese, Thousand Island dressing, and a soda. His last words were, "I'm sorry, I'm gone, I love you." Henry Lee Hunt, September 12, 2003, lethal injection. Hunt was found guilty of the 1984 murder of Jackie Ransom, a killing he carried out for $2,000 at the request of Ransom's wife, Dottie Ransom, who intended to collect on her husband's $25,000 life insurance policy. Just a few days after the murder, Hunt eliminated another man, Larry Jones, a police informant who had begun cooperating with authorities regarding Ransom's death. Another participant, Elwell Barnes, was also convicted in connection with the murders, but he died of natural causes in prison in 2001. His brother, A.R. Barnes, reached a plea deal for conspiracy, serving 7 years and 8 months behind bars. Dottie Ransom, who was revealed to have been married to both Jackie Ransom and Roger Locklear at the same time, also pleaded guilty to conspiracy, as did Locklear. Of all of those involved, Dottie Ransom is the only one still living. Hunt's last meal was a medium Domino's pizza with pepperoni, hamburger, Canadian bacon, sausage, onions, mushrooms, and green peppers, and a 20-ounce Coke. His last words were, "It's a good day to die." Joseph Earl Bates, September 26, 2003, lethal injection. Angry and determined to find out who had fired shots into his home 2 weeks earlier, Bates, accompanied by Gary Shaver, offered to drive an acquaintance, Charles Edward Jenkins, home from a bar. During the trip, Bates stopped the car and hit Jenkins 3 times in the back of the head with a shovel, knocking him unconscious. When Jenkins began to moan, Bates struck him again, then hog-tied him and placed him in the vehicle. On the way back to his campsite, Bates stopped at a friend's house and said, "I've got one of the guys that's been messing with me. Do you want to watch or help?" His friends refused, so Bates continued on to his campsite, where he tied Jenkins to a tree and continued beating and threatening him in an attempt to extract information. Afterwards, Bates untied him, led him to the back of his truck, and shot him in the neck, killing him. When questioned by police, Bates fully confessed to the crime. His last meal was fried pork chops, French fries, hush puppies, apple pie, a Pepsi, and a Dr. Pepper. His last words were, "I haven't really given it any thought," Bates said when asked by prison warden Marvin Polk for last words before being wheeled into the steel-walled execution chamber. Let's see, Hebrews chapter 13, verse 6, they can read it. The verse says, "So that we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper, and I will not fear what man shall do unto me." Edward Ernest Hartman, October 3, 2003, lethal injection. Hartman confessed to police that after consuming 16 beers, he shot 77-year-old Herman Smith Jr. in the head at close range while Smith sat in his recliner watching TV. Smith had previously dated Hartman's mother, and at the time, Hartman was living in Smith's home. He had told a friend that Smith was wealthy and often carried large sums of cash, which likely motivated the killing. After the murder, Hartman stole Smith's car and left the body sitting in the chair. 5 days later, he returned to the house, buried the body in a horse stable, and eventually led police to the burial site after learning that he had become a suspect. Hartman later claimed that he was treated unfairly during his trial, alleging that the prosecutor repeatedly referenced his homosexuality to prejudice the jury against him. His last meal was Greek salad, linguine with clam sauce, garlic bread, cheesecake with cherry topping, and a Coke. He didn't have any last words. Joseph Timothy Keel, November 7, 2003, lethal injection. Keel lured his father-in-law, John Simmons, under false pretenses, offering to take him to check out the offices at the hog farm where Keel worked. Once there, Keel later admitted he shot Simmons with a .22 caliber rifle, while the older man was still sitting inside his truck. When Simmons got out of the vehicle holding a knife, Keel fired again, wounding him. He then helped the injured man back into the truck, only to fire a final shot through the window, striking Simmons in the head and killing him. The motive for the murder remains unclear. Keel had previously told investigators that he and his father-in-law had been in a fistfight before the shooting. At sentencing, Keel's prior 1987 conviction for involuntary manslaughter in the beating death of his infant son was a key factor in the decision to impose the death penalty. Throughout his trial and appeals, Keel's defense centered on claims that he was mentally retarded and suffered from mental illness. His last meal was chicken, a biscuit, rice, a Diet Coke, and a T-bone steak without the bone and with mushrooms and onions. He didn't have any last words. John Dennis Daniels, November 14, 2003, lethal injection. Struggling with marital troubles and financial problems, Daniels went to the home of his 77-year-old aunt, Isabella Daniels Crawford, hoping to borrow money and persuade her to let his wife, Diane, and their son, Jonathan Maurice, move in with her. When Crawford refused and threatened to call his mother, Viola Daniels, he struck her in the face and strangled her with an electrical cord, killing her. Daniels then stole between $70 and $80 before returning home. Once there, after smoking cocaine in the bathroom, Daniels flew into a violent rage, attacking his wife and young son with a hammer, threatening a neighbor with a knife, and setting the house on fire. Firefighters managed to rescue him from inside the burning home. While being taken to the station, Daniels directed police to his aunt's residence, where officers discovered her beaten and strangled body. At the station, he gave a full confession and moments later attempted to hang himself using the drawstring from his pants. His last meal was ribeye steak, baked potato with sour cream and butter, pecan pie, soda, roll, and hush puppies. His last words were, "I just tell my mom, Maurice and Diane and the rest of the family, I'm sorry, I love them." Robbie James Lyons, December 5, 2003, lethal injection. Stephen Wilson Stafford, the owner of a small market in Winston-Salem, was shot and killed during a robbery carried out by Lyons, who entered the store, robbed Stafford, and then opened fire, killing him instantly. The next day, Lyons' accomplice Derek Hall turned himself in to authorities and later testified against Lyons, corroborated by an eyewitness who saw Lyons fleeing the store with a gun in his hand moments after the murder. Tragically, the killing could have been prevented. Lyons should not have been free at the time of the crime. He had been improperly released from prison just a few months earlier. On April 16, 1993, Lyons was convicted of multiple offenses, including property damage, larceny, and forgery, and was sentenced to 17 months in prison. Yet, due to an administrative error, he was released on May 17, 1993. Only 5 weeks later, Lyons was arrested for armed robbery under the false name Robbie James Johnson. Despite authorities being aware of his true identity, he was given a plea deal and sentenced to 3 years of probation, allowing him to walk free again on August 10, 1993. Just a month later, in September the same year, Lyons was arrested once more for failing to appear in court on a shoplifting charge, but he was released after posting a $50 bond. 4 days later, he entered Stafford's store and shot him dead during the robbery. His last meal was pizza and lasagna, both with meat that was prepared in accordance with Islamic law, and a Pepsi. His last words were, "If my death brings another person happiness, then I'm happy for them." Raymond Dale Rosie, January 9, 2004, lethal injection. At around 2 a.m., the body of Howard Drew Sikorsky was discovered lying on the floor of a Circle K convenience store, the victim of a brutal and senseless killing. An autopsy revealed that Sikorsky had been shot 6 times, once in the face, once in the back of the neck, once in the right side of the head, and 3 times in the back. In addition to the gunshot wounds, he had also sustained blunt force injuries to his head and neck, suggesting that he was also beaten before or after being shot. When investigators examined the store, they found that $57 in cash and several adult magazines were missing. Among the stolen cash was a $2 bill that the store had previously recorded by serial number, a detail that would soon prove crucial to solving the case. The trail led police to Raymond Steele, the half-brother of Raymond Rousey, after Steele tried to spend the marked $2 bill. Initially, Steele denied any connection to the murder, but he eventually confessed that he had been at the Circle K that night and had witnessed Rousey shoot the clerk. In exchange for his cooperation, Steele pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and testified against Rousey at trial. Investigators also discovered a shoe print near Sikorsky's head that matched Rousey's footwear, and evidence showed that Rousey possessed the murder weapon both before and after the crime. However, not everyone agreed with the prosecution's version of events. 2 county jail inmates later testified in Rousey's defense, claiming they had overheard Steele confessing that Rousey was not actually the shooter. His last meal was pizza, chicken wings, 2 packages of peanut M&M candy, and a Pepsi. He had no final words. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.